We killed it. And I hate to break the momentum here, but there are a few things that I want to mention before we go into this next scene. We're going to see a scene play out in kind of three parts, similar to the way Promise of the Forgotten fell into place. When we first met Angela in Blue Creek Apartments, there was that kind of like spacier, atmospheric noises to start off with. Then the piano entered as James and Angela's conversation started to get deeper. And then as Angela's leaving the room and she pulls out the knife and is going to give it to James and then seems to regress a little bit, it gets spacey and atmospheric again with all these weird notes and everything. This next scene is structured very similarly. And I'll talk more about that stuff after we watch the scene, but I want you to pay attention to like two main things. First of all, when the piano comes in, and second of all, when the drum machine comes in. Those things kind of offset the second movement of the scene and the third movement of the scene. And I think they're very intentional about where they fall in the dialogue and what they say about what's happening in the scene. So just keep an ear out for that stuff as we're watching the scene, if you can. Also, if you just want to watch it and experience the story, we'll talk about it all after the scene plays out. But yeah, this is my favorite new piece of music for the game and is called After Daddy, fittingly enough.
Okay, Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not. It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know. I see what you're doing. It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
Angela, please.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead. Say it. Or you could just force me. Like he always did. You disgusting pig. I hate you. I hate you.
Angela. I don't know who you think I am, but I don't want to hurt you. I just want to get my Mary back.
You're Mary. Your own little Mary. At least she was. For a while.
What?
Admit it. You didn't want her around anymore.
No.
You probably found someone else.
No!
I need to find my mama.
I never.
So, this piece of music, like I said before, is called After Daddy. technically on the soundtrack album, After Daddy doesn't begin until the piano enters. But I don't know if there's a specific track that is playing before the piano enters. And just like the way that scene evolves. So let's talk about it from the musical perspective. We start off with kind of these weird synthy tones playing in the background. We don't have a key really that we're in. We're just hearing atmospheric noises. We hear this like descending pitch that goes like very horror movie type soundtrack. This is all while Angela is still in a very heightened state of emotion. She's just thrown a TV at her father, essentially, which I think Masahiro even confirmed that what we see isn't necessarily what Angela sees. It's James's interpretation of what has manifested for Angela. And she can't really think about James in terms of like, oh, this is the guy that I've met before. There, like she is very much viewing him as like, oh, he's just another man that could be a threat to me, which can't really blame her for, considering what she had to deal with, and considering what she's just gone through right now. So she turns to James. She is kind of yelling at him for saying, hey, calm down, which I think is entirely fair as well. Like, when James is like, it's okay, it's like, okay, James, you've been pretty good with handling her before, but it is not okay. I know you also just had to deal with this, but like, I think it's, and this isn't a criticism of the writing, this is a criticism of James as a person. I think it's a well-written moment, because like James isn't the perfect dude, as we well know. Like, I think it is like the whole scene, the chemistry between the characters, the way the dialogue is written, the way it develops. We get Angela yelling at James and saying like, look, just say it. You're all the same. I'm trying to remember the exact dialogue of the scene, but I'm not doing a great job of that. But she says, or you could just force me the way he did. And that is where we get this piano that enters. To me, the piano entering on that moment is so powerful. Like, the first time I watched the scene, I was like, oh, geez. The piano in a lot of ways, especially when it's unfiltered, the way that we've heard it in other tracks, when it doesn't have a ton of effects thrown on it or something, where for the piano to come in at that moment, I think the piano is such a grounding instrument in the soundtrack. Like, it is the instrument that carries the Anam Cara Magdalene love theme for James and Mary, and in some ways Maria. It provides that kind of stability during their scene in Blue Creek Apartments when they are having a conversation where it feels like they are actually kind of making some ground in terms of understanding each other. And so for the piano to come in on that moment with that chord, it's just a straight up G minor chord. It doesn't have any suspensions or sevenths or like any other additional harmony. It's almost as if to say, like, it is clear what is happening here. It is clear the emotion that we're experiencing here, and having the piano enter at that moment just feels so right to me. It feels like it intensifies the moment, and it frames it in like the soundtrack in a lot of media can almost be like a Greek chorus or like a third party that's not necessarily telling you how to feel, but offering you another perspective. And so to hear Angela's a moment like supported emotionally by the soundtrack is to me very powerful. It's like as if this Greek chorus, this like third party, is saying like, no, this is like, it is right for you to be feeling this way, and it is okay for you to be feeling this way because it is a logical reaction to this situation. When I was in when I've had therapy sessions with my therapist, like very early on, not even that early on, like as recently as like during the pandemic when I was going through a lot of shit, as a lot of people do. That was one of the things that I remember my therapist talking about is like it's so easy, it was such a knee-jerk reaction for me to be like, oh well, I felt this way, but like I really shouldn't feel that for this, that, and the other reason. And my therapist was so good about being like, well, why wouldn't you feel that way? Because like you got upset by a thing that is upsetting, and it was so validating. And like I have a friend from work who has also been very good about saying that, where like I'll talk to him about something and it's clear I've been trying to just like compartmentalize it and get over it, and he'll just be like, no, yeah, that like I understand why you're feeling the way that you are. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't need to undercut all my emotions. So we get this melody in G minor. I have in my notes, the piano enters at the moment of catharsis. I don't know, that sounds really profound in my head. I don't know if it's accurate, but it makes sense to me. The other thing I discovered, which I was talking about before the whole boss battle, is this melody. We actually have heard it before in the game. When I went back to edit the Promise of the Forgotten video, and it gets to that section at the end where Angela almost like brandishes the knife at James, and it starts to get weird and atmospheric again. It's these synth notes, and so it's harder they don't cut through as clearly, but we hear those notes. We hear in this synth in the background. And when I realized that, I was like, holy shit, we actually get a rehearsal of this moment back in that scene as a way. Like, the other thing I like to talk about with movies, with soundtracks to any media, is how they can tell a subliminal story that they can show you subtext that the text of the story may not be giving you. And like people talk a lot about how like, oh, you can score a scene in a lot of different ways and it can totally change the meaning of that scene. But another way that you can tell a subliminal story is by having a theme like this come in at an important moment. By having that melody happen in that moment, we can it logically proceeds that Angela must be thinking about her father in that moment, or reliving something from her past, reliving that trauma, thinking about that trauma. And so in the soundtrack, it works as foreshadowing for this scene where we get that melody again, but now we hear it clearly. This is the truth that Angela has been avoiding and has been reliving in certain ways in these different moments in Silent Hill. So there's that moment. We get that very somber music as Angela breaks down and has her moment to cry. And James says, Angela, I don't know who you think I am, but I don't want to hurt you. I just want to find my Mary. And it's at that moment that we start to get this melody in the upper register that goes up until that point. We've had a sense of rhythm, in the sense that like you can count a pulse to, but there's a lot more space between like the measure line, so to speak. You'd almost say it's like just play freely. That's what would be written on the sheet music. And then we get this melody in the upper register that kind of solidifies what our pulse is in a rhythmic sense. We get which you can count out as 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we get this sense of rhythm. We're starting to move into a place where like, oh, we have a sense of rhythm and pulse as it cuts back to Angela immediately after James has said, I just want to find my Mary. And Angela's still in this state of emotion, still thinking about how James could very well just be like any other man that she's had experience with. And so she starts to say bitterly, Mary, your precious little Mary. At least she was. And I think it's important that we start to hear the rhythm stuff introduced here, because I think rhythm, the way that it is used in the soundtrack, because so much of the game doesn't have like a drum track or a sense of rhythm that is like a groove, so to speak. I think rhythm is one of the ways that Kiriyama helps us feel like, oh, things are starting to progress, things are developing, things are getting more complicated. Or like it might be an indicator of like revelation as we're like moving towards some sort of truth. So we get this sense of rhythm, and it builds. We start to get more instruments added in. We get this synth tone that's kind of playing these upper notes, and then it builds towards the moment where Angela says, what is it she says? Does she say, admit it, you didn't want her around anymore? And that is the moment where the drum machine enters, and we start getting this synth and piano line that's like... And we have this drum machine beat that isn't as intense as some of the other drums we've heard in the game, but it gives us that solid sense of rhythm of pushing forward, like, hey, James, you can't avoid this. We are moving towards you learning something about yourself that you aren't going to like. And the first time we hear drum, I've been trying to come up with a theory as to like what rhythm means in this game. And part of the reason that I am saying like, oh, it's progression, development, that sort of thing, is because the first time that we hear any drum machine is when we meet Maria in Rosewater Park. And all of Maria's songs have drums of some sort, whether it's drum machine or drums, except for Shadow of the Lover's Tree, which I've talked in a previous video about why I think that doesn't have like drums in it, but it still has a strong sense of rhythm that it plays around with a ton. So that is basically the structure of the scene, and I wanted to get that deep into it because I wanted to talk about how like and it isn't just Akira Yamaoka on the composition side. I think it's also like the director, the actors, and the editors figuring out the pacing of that scene so that these big musical moments, the piano entering and the drum machine entering, fall on a moment in the scene where it feels important. Yeah, and that was another thing I was wondering. Cleo says, I mean, he's like, I never, but Maria, are the drums calling him out? The drums might be calling him out. Maybe the drums are just like the biggest call out machine in this game, because the other thing that's interesting is we hear another significant place where we hear drums is during True, when James watches the videotape. So that is sort of my theory when it comes to drums and rhythm in this game, in the soundtrack of this game. I may change my mind about certain things, or things may develop later on. But I like the idea of, it's like, oh yeah, the drums are kind of calling them out. Especially if we're thinking again of the soundtrack as this like Greek chorus almost. To get more into the like music theory side of things that I've been doing with a lot of these videos, one of the things I haven't talked a ton about in terms of like melody writing and harmony writing is I haven't brought up the pentatonic scale, which you may have heard that term before. Pentatonic scale literally refers to a 5-note scale. In a major mode, we hear it as. In the minor mode, we hear it as. If you ever watched American Idol when Harry Connick Jr. was on it, he often talked about how like a lot of singers, and a lot of guitar soloists, like a lot of soloists on any instrument, will lean on the pentatonic scale as a place to like improvise and do big runs and stuff, because it sounds good over almost any diatonic chords that you're using in a key. Like if I just wanted to come up with a random chord progression in this key and play in pentatonic scale, it'd be like. If I include other notes in that scale, like there are some more chances of dissonance in there. So the notes that like we're emitting from the 8-note scale, those are significant. The notes that we're emitting in the minor mode are the 2nd scale degree and the 6th scale degree in the pentatonic scale in the natural minor mode. And the reason that those are emitted is because they are the only notes in the scale that are that half-step relationship. We're building on a lot of stuff that I've talked about in previous videos, and and there's a reason I've been talking about that stuff, to talk about this sort of stuff. Akira Yamaoka uses the 2nd and 6th scale degree in very particular ways. A lot of composers use them to create tension or a sense of longing, or to add color to a chord. The reason that these notes in particular have such an effect on melodies and harmony and stuff is because when we hear them in the context of a chord, our ear wants them to resolve because they have that half-step relationship. The 6th scale degree we want to hear resolve down to that 5th scale degree. The 2nd scale degree, we want to hear that resolve up to the 3rd scale degree. In a scale, the most stable notes are typically like you've got your root, you've got the 5th, and then you've got the 3rd, which gives us whether it's minor or major typically. And so any other notes are typically going to want to resolve to those notes. The 4th isn't as much of a big deal, but yeah, that 2nd scale degree and the 6th scale degree in the minor mode, we want to hear them resolve. If we're playing in a major key, they are the 4th scale degree and the 7th scale degree. And I'm going to bring that up just because it's a little easier to hear that, like, oh, they want to resolve thing in the major mode. Like if you hear a chord progression, it's like we want to hear that resolve up to here, or if we want to do like we want to hear that resolve down. That's what the people like to call the amen cadence. Amen. Plagal cadence, if you're into music theory and stuff. These are the notes that horror composers like to use a lot, or people who write stuff in minor key like to use a lot, because they are so evocative. The reason I'm bringing it up in this scene in particular is because as we're hearing we get that second scale degree, which adds a little bit of complication to the harmony. And then on the next, like we hear and then on the next time we hit this chord, we hear some instrument or sound in the background hit that sixth scale degree. It's like a, and it adds that sense of tension and horror at what we are witnessing, at what we are learning about Angela. It adds that sense of despair, almost. And I'm sure that there are other places where I want to bring that up in the future. But I wish I had brought it in sooner, because it's also like where we get that chord progression is playing around with the sixth scale degree. I don't know how much of that is going to end up going into the staying on theme video, but it's all stuff that I feel like is useful to know if you're trying to understand music better. And I think it supports what I'm trying to say about why this piece works so well. There's all this stuff going on in the harmony and in the actual placement of these musical moments throughout the scene that either support the story or tell us an additional side of the story. Like the drums entering when Angela says, "You didn't want her around anymore." They, going back to what I was talking about before, how you can score a scene entirely different. If James was, like, if he had done nothing wrong to Mary, then that moment wouldn't be scored that way. It would be probably more sad thing for James, where it would probably just be like without any sort of drums or anything to suggest like, oh, how could Angela accuse James of this? But because we have that drum machine enter and we have these synth notes in the background playing around with the sixth scale degree, the second and sixth scale degree, Kyriamalka really loves playing around with those notes, and they are a tritone apart, for anyone who watched tritone stuff. And having those notes and having that drum machine enter suggests like, oh, maybe there's some truth to what Angela is saying. Music. I love it.